Our third unit on geology refers to surface processes. These are the processes that shape our landscapes. They tear the landscape back down through leveling or destructive forces. These forces include weathering, rocks breaking down, erosion, the material being transported, and then deposition, which lays that material back down. These surface processes are responsible for producing some of the most beautiful and spectacular landscapes, as seen here in the Colorado Plateau, with a large river canyon being formed by the process of river erosion. To begin this unit, we're going to start with the breakdown of rocks. This is known as weathering. And weathering refers to the physical and chemical breakdown of rocks at or near Earth's surface. In other words, the rocks need to be exposed to the atmosphere. Once exposed to the atmosphere, rain and wind and other elements can start to break it down and transport that material. Weathering is the breakdown of the rocks, and that happens by either physical or chemical weathering. Today we're going to explore physical weathering. Physical weathering is the mechanical breakdown of rock into smaller pieces or sediments without a change in the mineral's chemical composition. In other words, if I had a rock and I placed it on a desk and I slammed that rock with a hammer, that rock could break into 100 pieces. There was no chemical change in the composition. It simply broke down. This is called physical weathering. There are many types of physical weathering. Frost action is an example of physical weathering. Sometimes water seeps into the cracks of rocks. When that water freezes, water in the freezing water, the ice, expands in size. We've all seen this before, perhaps, if we've ever put a Coke can in the freezer. If you forget about it, you're going to open the freezer door and you're going to see a big mess because the water, when it freezes, expands in volume and it causes the can to crack. Well, that's exactly what the water does when it freezes within a rock. It expands and breaks the rock down. There was no chemical change in the composition of the rock. It just simply broke down physically or mechanically. Plants and animals can also physically weather the rocks. Sometimes trees insert their roots into the cracks of rocks. As those trees get larger, their roots get larger, and they pry those cracks open. This is a physical form of weathering. Certain animals like to burrow in soils and can also physically break down rocks. Another really interesting form of physical weathering is what we call exfoliation. This is literally where the rock begins to peel away from Earth's surface. Certain rocks, like granite, form deep within the Earth under enormous amounts of pressure. Under that pressure, cracks start to form in the rocks. If processes of uplift, plate tectonics, bring those rocks to the surface, there's an enormous amount of pressure released, and then the rock starts to peel away along those cracks. This is Half Dome. You'll find this in Yosemite Valley. This is a rock climber's paradise. And the rocks have just literally peeled away to form this really fascinating dome. So physically, the rocks are breaking down as gravity pulls them downhill, and the cracks split the rocks open. Changes in temperature also affect rocks. We're not strangers to this here in Rochester. We have really cold winters and really warm summers. When things warm up, they typically expand. Think of a bag of microwave popcorn. When things cool down, they shrink. This constant expansion and shrinking cause the rocks to mechanically and physically break down. The final type of weathering is what we call abrasion. Now, if you ever fall on concrete, You'll scrape your skin up. This is an abrasion on your leg, for example. Rocks also abrade. When they are transported, like when rocks and materials are moved through a river, or when sediment is picked up by the wind, those sediments slam into other rocks. And over time, as they're transported, those rocks become rounded and smooth and smaller when they're transported by rivers. Sediments in the water are constantly blasting and sculpting and smoothing and rounding these rocks. Wind also picks up sand. When it picks up the sand, it can blast the surrounding rocks. This sand blasting actually creates a pitted and frosted appearance and can actually break down physically the rock that the sands are constantly hitting. That's it for physical weathering. Next time we'll be talking about chemical weathering. Have a great day, guys.